Eruvin Daf Tzadik Ches. First email comes for us from Eliezer from Farakwe. First rebellion, Mazel Tov on your niece's engagement. Should be weiter good news, and Gesund there is referring to my niece Ruti, my brother and sister-in-law Rafal and Shani from Farakwe. We were familiar with Shoshana Razi Basilka. The entire 8-minute project was started in her schus. They should hear more simchas and weiter great news. And he says the word ois can be translated as symbolic connection. My very best wishes, Eliezer. Second email from Yoeli Elkan from Lakewood. If the wedding is in Lakewood, you're invited to stay at my house. I really appreciate it, Yoeli. Thank you. Eruvin Daf, we're starting with a brand new mission. A person is sitting on his stoop in front of his house, holding on to a sefer that looks like today's Sefer Torah, parchment rolled up on a stick. Part of it falls out of his hand and goes into the street. The second half remains in his hand. The halacha is, goylel, you can roll it up and bring it back to you. 3 pshatim in the Gemara. According to Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Shimon, we're discussing a stoop that's a Rishus HaYachid, and what's the problem? Perhaps the entire thing will fall out of your hand, and you might come to carry from Rishus Rabbim into Rishus HaYachid. We're not concerned in this case because when it comes to Kisvei Kodesh, Chachamim were more mekel. Rabbi says we're talking about that the stoop is in a place where there are a lot of people walking by. It's a skufan addresses, and therefore there's a true concern that there'll be a bizayon for this Kisvei Kodesh. Somebody's going to step on it without question. And that's why you're allowed to bring it back to you. And the third pshat is Abaye, who says we're talking about it in a skufa that's not a Rishus HaYachid. It's not 10 tefachim tall. It's less than 10 tefachim tall, which makes it a karmelis. What's the worst case scenario? Perhaps the entire sefer will fall out of your hand, and you'll come to carry it from the Rishus Rabbim to your stoop, which is a karmelis. That's only Isur D'Rabbanan. And in this case, we're not geyser. The big problem is that every stoop is right in front of a house. A house is Rishus HaYachid. So you might come to carry it from the Rishus Rabbim into your house, Rishus HaYachid. 2 pshatim in the Gemara according to Abaye. Either we're talking about a very long karmelis, by the time you get halfway through, let's say, you'll remind yourself and say, oh, I'm about to be over Isur D'Oraisa. According to Ben Azai, another pshat. Doesn't have to be talking about a very long karmelis. But every time you take a step, you plant your foot down, that foot is not moving. Your toes are stuck to the ground for that millisecond, and that's mahalach ka'omet. And therefore, it's as if you put down the sefer in a karmelis. So you no longer have an akira picking up in a Rishus HaYachid and a hanacha and placing down in a Rishus HaRabbim, or the opposite, an akira in Rishus HaRabbim and a hanacha in Rishus HaYachid, because somewhere in between you made a hanacha in the karmelis. The Mishnah continues, if a person was reading from his scroll on a rooftop, roof is definitely a Rishus HaYachid, and it fell off, according to the Tanna Kama, as long as it didn't fall within 10 tefachim of the ground, you could roll it back up to where you are. And if it rolls more than 10 tefachim, closer to the ground, within 10 tefachim, you flip it over. In other words, you put the words, the letters, facing down so you don't see it. Gemara explains that we're talking about in a situation where you can't cover it. According to Tosfos, you're not allowed to cover it. Rashi says you don't have what to cover it with. But otherwise, during the weekday, for instance, a sefer should not flip the sefer over. That's not but covered for the sefer. According to Rava, we're dealing with a kaisel meshupa. The wall is on an angle. So in fact, the sefer is resting. Even though it's not touching the ground, it's laying flat on the wall. According to Rabbi Yehuda, even if it's within a needle's breadth of the ground, it's not considered resting. When it comes to hanacha, it has to be completely on the ground, and if it's not completely on the ground, it's not considered hanacha. According to Rabbi Shimon, even if it's on the ground itself, you could still roll it up to you. Why? Once again, because once it comes to a bezayin of Kisvei Kodesh, there's no shvus, there's no Isur D'Rabbanan, we remove the Isur D'Rabbanan. Says the Mishnah, if there's a windowsill that comes outside of the house and is right above the Rishus HaRabbim, if you have vessels that are breakable, you can place them on the sill. We're not concerned that the vessel will fall off and you'll retrieve it, because once it falls off, it breaks. The main thing is that this sill should not be within 10 tefachim of the ground. If the sill does not have 4 tefachim width, then even the part that's within the window, you cannot place things there. Why? Because it will fall off, says Rashi, and people will think that you have thrown things out of your window, which is usher to throw things to the Rishus HaRabbim. What if there's a double sill, one above the other? The top one is less than 4 tefachim, but together with the window sill, the sill that's part of the house, the wall, you have 4 tefachim. So over there you could use it. In other words, within the window you could use it. Anything extending beyond the window is going to be less than 4 tefachim. You cannot place anything on it. The one below, and the Chiddush says Taisvis, that I could get there, even though it's difficult to get around the top one. Nevertheless, I could use the entire width of the bottom one, because the entire width is 4 tefachim. Have a wonderful day.